Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we will have a webinar, and the topic of the webinar is transforming the next generation of leaders for disruptive and digital industry 4.0. The webinar will be hosted by Professor Sattar Bhawani. Professor Sattar Bhawani is the CEO of Disruptive Leadership Institute. He is concurrently the CEO and C-suite master executive coach of the Center for Executive Education. And Professor Bhawani also is currently the professor of practice in disruptive leadership for the IPE Management School, Paris. He is also the executive MBA in digital transformation program. He was until recently the adjunct professor of organizational leadership with Curtin Graduate School of Business and a member of the International Advisory Board of Curtin University. He was awarded the Executive of the Year for HR Consulting at the Singapore Business Management Excellence Awards 2019. He is an adjunct faculty of Harvard Business Publishing Corporate Learning, who partners with clients to create world-class leadership development solutions for management at all levels in global organizations and governments. He has over 30 years international business management experience, including 20 years in executive coaching, group facilitation, and leadership development and training with global management consulting firms, including Mercer HR, Hay Group, Korn Ferry, and DBM Asia Pacific. He is also a keynote speaker at international and regional conferences, workshops, and seminars on talent management, leadership, and development teams. He is also the author of very extensive articles and a lot of books, and he is also a fellow member of several international professional organizations. He is a very experienced professor. He is also a very knowledgeable professor. He has a lot of experiences of giving lectures, and also giving a lot of webinars and seminars in different countries. So without further introduced him, because we already know him very well, by the way, I will give the mic and floor to, first of all, Mr. 𝐂𝐻𝐒 to give a speech, and after that, we start with the webinar and the lecture of Professor Sattar Bhawani. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Pak Saka.
Yes.
Sorry, Prof. Saya in bahasa ya.
Nggak apa.
Apa ya? Oke. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Teman-teman, ini kalau biasanya nanti kita kan sore ya. Nah, ini kebetulan kemarin kita coba-coba cari insight dari luar negeri. Ternyata kami minta Prof. Sattar untuk berbagi di Indonesia untuk teman-teman, untuk komunitas kami. Memang nggak mudah karena waktunya yang kemarin itu pagi kita coba ajukan ke jam 10. Jadi mudah-mudahan, dan kenapa saya minta Prof. Sattar, karena memang di Indonesia ini semua yang dibicarakan adalah masalah digitalisasi, ya, disruption leadership. Semua organisasi berbincang tentang itu. Nah, kami mencoba kayak apa sih kalau yang ngomong itu orang Singapura gitu kan. Nah, ini ketemu teman lama yang pernah hadir di kegiatan kami 3-4 tahun yang lalu, sehingga kami kontak dan beliau berkenan. Dan saya yakin Prof. tadi saya kenal banget, orangnya sangat detail, sangat komprehensif kalau menyampaikan sesuatu, sehingga barangkali waktu 1,5 jam ini bisa kita dapatkanlah sesuatu apa yang disampaikan nanti. Karena saya yakin setelah kenal beliau itu sangat intens untuk mengikuti berbagai perubahan-perubahan khususnya di dalam manajemen dan kepemimpinan. Nah, saya menarik karena riset-risetnya juga sangat banyak dan aktif sekali saya lihat, baik di medsos maupun di jalur-jalur internet, jalur pembelajaran luar biasa. Dan saya merasa bahwa ini harus sharing kayak di Indonesia gitu ya. Memang nggak mudah ya, Prof. kita mendapatkan karena saya sendiri terus aja nggak fluent kan kalau ngomong begitu. Maka kita hadirkan Pak Saka, Pak Slamet, ada Melan, silakan. Nah, tapi saya pasif ya. Oke. Untuk itu, Bapak dan sekalian, mudah-mudahan pagi ini kita dapat masukan yang banyak tentang bagaimana menghadapi situasi disruptif ini dengan teori-teori atau hasil kajian Prof. Sattar untuk kepentingan organisasi kita di Indonesia. Demikian Pak Saka dari saya. Terima kasih.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. And now is the presentation or lecture from Professor Sattar Bhawani. Please, Professor.
First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Welcome.
Welcome to each and everyone. So first of all, I'd like to thank Pak Kus, Pak Slamet, Mel, and our friends from Intipisan for this opportunity to share the latest research best practices on the transforming the next generation leaders in the era of digital transformation, digital disruption, at the future workplace in the post-pandemic era. So we're going to talk a lot of things, a lot of latest information. First time in the world, I'm going to present some research combining my different books, different research. Over the last, I started doing the research in February, March, after the pandemic, the lockdown in Wuhan, in 23rd of January in China because of the COVID-19. And since then, I've been looking at different impact of COVID-19 in organization, organisasi, and how it has impacted lives, livelihood, jobs, career, and I'll share some of this later. So you're going to see a different aspect in the next 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes. I will give about 20 minutes of Q&A. But again, this is just the beginning. We can continue to have dialogue, continue to exchange views as we go along, continue this process as we look at the impact of the pandemic and also the preparation for the post-pandemic. In other words, getting back to new normal. What does it mean? And how can we be ready? So I will speak very slowly. I will speak slowly, and and I cannot speak Bahasa proper, so I can just in conversational Bahasa. Even then, it's more Malay than Bahasa. So I apologize. So, but please, you can ask me question later in Bahasa if you feel comfortable. And speak like Pak Kus. I understand. If I need help, I will ask our friends from Intipisan to translate or put it into, or Pak Saka to as the moderator to put things into English for me so I can respond. So the title today, this morning. So once again, good morning. I think quite a number of you just joined. Good morning again to this first webinar that in Indonesia, that Disruptive Leadership Institute globally, and together with Intipisan, we are organizing this webinar where we want to share some best practices on how do you develop leaders for tomorrow, but at the same time, more important, how do we develop our current leaders to be able to manage the challenges of the disruption of the pandemic, and what are some of the best practice that we can look at to help them to be more effective in managing the challenges, and also what we need to do to manage future challenges, future crises, so that we can be prepared. There will be more and more crises. There'll be more and more challenges that we're going to face as we start looking at what are the lessons learned, and we should be incorporate that in our leadership development strategies. How do we plan our HR strategies? So HR has a very important role to play. The CEO, number one, has a very important to play. CEO, president, director general, all the head of organization, head of HR, and all business leaders have a very important role to play to help our organization to be ready for the new normal of the post-pandemic. So what are some of the issues? I think earlier Pasaka has given a quick introduction of myself. So I would just want to highlight a few things. Number one, what I'm going to share with you is based on 30 years of experience research as an executive coach, as a CEO, as a board member, as an advisor to organizations worldwide in US, in Russia. I work in Russia, in US, Africa, in Europe, UK, quite a fair bit of time, my time in the UK, and of course in Asia Pacific. Being in Singapore, I'm a Singaporean, but of course I've been traveling across Asia Pacific, China for the last 25 years, looking at organization development and helping leaders to be able to manage their challenges. Yeah. So please, as we proceed in this dialogue exchange, I'll be sharing a little bit about two books that was related to this topic. One is the Leadership in Disruptive Time, was published in July 30th this year in US, in New York, where we talk about the pandemic and the digital disruption, and based on research, interview with Microsoft, Starbucks, Uber, Netflix, and in Singapore, DBS Bank, how they transformed themselves to be a digital-driven organization. And also last year, a research that was published in New York as well, regarding preparing the future leader for Industry 4.0. What are some of the competency, some of the challenges, and what organizations, CEOs can do to prepare their future leaders as part of talent management and succession planning. And the book is called Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders, Developing Leaders for the Future Disruptive, Digital-Driven Era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So these are the two books you can see on the left, that there'll be a research that I will draw upon and sharing with you so that you can benefit from this. Yeah? So let me start off. What can we look at? By the way, the one of the book, the latest book has been both book 1999 and 2000, have been endorsed by thought leaders globally. Two of the global thought leaders on leadership. One is Marshall Goldsmith, which is the world's #1 leadership guru in the US, and he's endorsed my book and used it as part of the coaching practice for his client, and he recommends for future leaders. The other one is a professor from IMD in Switzerland, Professor Howard Yu, the thought leader in innovation, the world #1 leader in innovation, acknowledged, to be one of the youngest leader to talk about what are challenges, organization need to overcome in preparing for the digital driven, and he endorsed, he read, and he looked at the tools and so forth. So they are both thought leaders. So you can get more information, go to disruptiveleadership.institute, the link below, or the publisher website at businessexpress.com. Now, let me now start off with a very important topic. We talk about Industry 4.0. It's a topic that everyone talk about. What is 4.0, IR 4.0, fourth industrial revolution? And it's important to understand because a lot of people use that word loosely. They do not understand the impact, the evolution. And what I've done last year, my first book, or rather the second book, the first book was in 2010 about developing leaders through coaching. But this second book, when I'm talking about the transforming leaders in the fourth industrial revolution, I was looking at what are some of the evolution of the technological evolution, and what is it different this time around. And it's hugely different as compared to what we've seen from the 1700s, when we talk about the first revolution, where you are talking about industries, organization, they are run through steam power, steam engine. That was back in the 1700s, early 18th century. Then the second revolution, or industrial revolution, when we're talking about electricity, the invention of electricity, when the mass production, when you have the Ford Motor Company, you have a lot of industry where using electricity in the manufacturing or assembly line. So that is back in the 1870s or the early in the 19th century. Then of course we have in the 20th century, we have what we call the third industrial revolution, with the invention of the computers, with the invention of the electronic technology. Organization is able to develop faster or able to develop products and to be able to transform the organization by leveraging on such, this new technology, automated production, like, for example, what we have seen in television, we have seen in household appliances, we have seen in office automation, and that because of that PC technology. And then you move to 1995-96, where internet revolution, with the Microsoft 95, with the browser coming in with Netscape, and Microsoft, the war, they call it the browser war, the internet revolution picking up in the mid-90s to late 90s, where then the fourth industrial revolution that we are facing now, it's not new. It's been around 2000, 2001, 2002, and you probably heard of the dot-com bust in 2001. And that is because of the growth of the internet. And what has happened is that because of the confluence of the new technology, internet technology like AI, big data, blockchain, robotic, iOS, and IoT, and many others, as nanotechnology has come together, bring about a tremendous revolution, which makes life so easy, but at the same time so complex, because we as human beings, as managers in organization, is not able to comprehend all this confluence, the multiple forces coming together all at the same time. So it is interesting to see how we as leaders, over the years of experience, struggle because of this new fourth industrial revolution. And what does it include? Include AI, artificial intelligence, and how at times you find that computers, decisions are made by computers. They learn. And one of the easier things to think about AI, if you look at cars, autonomous, the driverless car, where what Tesla, Google has test drive over the years. They learn from experience. They make they learn and then develop algorithm and develop what you call the predictive analysis to help you to make decision. And then you have what we call the sometimes we have the term they just call machine learning, where in organization, or could be business or even healthcare or hospital in research, where through the computers can learn and then make recommendations, suggestions based on what they have learned through their past experience, past patterns, and help you to make decisions. Then of course you have the robotic automation. You have seen it's not new. The robot in manufacturing Japan, in Toyota, Honda, in Germany, in Mercedes-Benz, in Bosch. You've seen it in Siemens. It's been around for a long time. It's not new. Robots have been around since 60s or 70s, but now become more intelligent. They are looking at ways on how robot can replace human in manufacturing, and it's a term that I use is been described what we call cobot, C-O-B-O-T. In my book, I explained cobot, where we have manufacturing facility in US and in some country where the robots even replace or work side by side, depending on the nature of the industry. Robot works side by side with human on how to be able to automate, to improve processes, productivity, and so forth. And of course, you have the big data to help you make decisions, the blockchain technology used in supply chain, in logistics, and nanotechnology in research for cancer. And of course, the Internet of Things, where you can combine all the different appliances with your handheld device, with your phone. You can control everything in the home or everything in the office. So these are currently already in existence as early as 2006. So actually, if you look at Internet Industry 4.0, it's not new. It's been around. The only thing that is not so prevalent it is today. So today, it's become more pronounced. We are seeing it around us worldwide as we travel. Okay. So now let me come to today's topic. Why are we concerned? And my research for the last 20 years is the biggest challenge of leaders or organization CEOs, that they are not preparing future leaders. So how do you ensure that you have enough leaders in the organization, or we call it the leadership pipeline, so that they are able to sustain and run the organization when times come, when the CEO need to pass on the baton, or when there's, unfortunately, when you have demise, when you have people no longer around, could be dev, or people leave the organization. How do you ensure you have enough people to continue the operation? So this is about what we call sustainability. And one of the biggest problems that we have seen worldwide is that not enough time, effort, resources are being put in by CEOs, CHRO, business leader, in terms of putting enough effort to prepare these future leaders. And all your effort as a founder, entrepreneur, or business leader, you put in a lot of effort to build the organization. And without these leaders to continue to ensure operational sustainability, business sustainability, all will go down to waste. So this is why preparing, identifying, selecting, and developing future leaders, or what I use the word next generation of leaders, is so important. Because if you don't do that now, you don't invest now, you will find that you do not have the right talent to bring the organization in the future. So this is the #1 challenge that leaders face. And I published that in looking at worldwide organization, other research. My books include more than 300 other research. So there were a lot of other from Harvard, Stanford, BDI, CCL, Oxford, Cambridge, NUS in Singapore, in Europe, of course, depending in some part in Japan and Korea and Australia. So we look at all the different organizations based on my experience with Mercer Human Resource Consulting, with Hay Group, now part of Korn Ferry, and also with DBM, which is the global coaching firm, and also with EDA now, and now with Disruptive Leadership Institute. Again, it's a global think tank research that help organizations to be ready for the disruptive post-pandemic. Yeah. So let me now move into what we call the disruption. So what exactly, when we talk about disruption, so we need to understand the meaning. What does it mean? How is it that, how does it impact many of the other organizations that we have seen? One of the biggest challenge is to be able to manage this disruption, which could impact our operational viability. Okay, so in other words, what are the disruptions? So if you look at disruption, in my book, in the 2020 book, I talk about what are the different types of disruption. It can be, of course, we know disruption as crisis. We have seen what happened in the September 11. It's a huge disruption to business, September 11, the hijacking in the US, and how it has impacted travel aviation. Of course, not as bad as what we see today. The disruption, I would appreciate, could everybody please mute your what do you call it, your microphone, please, so there's no disruption. Mute all microphone, please. Can we have somebody from Intipisan mute everyone microphone, please, until Q&A. Mel, can you mute everybody? I'm hearing a lot of echo behind. It's very disruptive. Can we mute everyone, please? Yeah. Okay. So it's very important for.
Jadi unmute semuanya.
Okay, so what we have found in the research is that you're going to have more disruption. In the next 5 years, there are going to be more pandemics. Research has shown, you heard a lot of experts say that we have to prepare. And what we are going through, the COVID-19 pandemic disruption, has been warned by Bill Gates, by Dr. Fauci, by many researchers worldwide, experts saying that because of what the nature of the world works, because of global bio-warfare, because of research into the different ways in which the competing forces, geopolitical forces, competing between the American and the Chinese and so forth. And there are many other reasons, many other factors that is impacted the pandemic, and I will talk a little bit about that later. But one of the things that I can assure you in my book, that one of the biggest disruption that's coming soon is the climate change in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be huge disruption into business operation, and it's not fake news. The climate disruption, climate change is a real business problem that has to be faced head on. But let's focus about now, today, and the next 2 to 3 years. The number one biggest disruption that we are facing is the digital disruption. You know, I believe when I've been doing for the last 8 months to 9 months worldwide, as I go all over the world virtually to talk about the leadership in disruptive time, my book was launched worldwide. One in Russia, in Africa. I was in Mombasa, Kenya last month. I was in Vietnam. I was in London. I was in Dallas, Texas, in Washington, D.C., many parts of the world. And one of the common themes is this: people are concerned about their livelihood, concerned about their family, and many of the organizations are not ready for the post-pandemic. Now, what is the number one concern? And I asked participants, during all the webinar, you can find all the past webinar, most of the webinar that is published, you can find on the YouTube channel. At the end, I will give you the link. One of the things I found is that a lot of people are so focused about today, which is rightly so. I'm not saying, yes, you need to focus on the current issue on hand, the challenges, the pandemic, what are some of the disruption to life, to customers, operation, to business, sustainability. But at the same time, concurrently, you need to be ready for the new normal or the post-pandemic or the next normal. Now, do you get are your leaders ready? So this is the way, because this disruption has changed the way we live, the way we work, the way we do business, and it's going to be many other disruptions. not only the pandemic, as I said, the climate change, the digital transformation, the disruption can also be in the government. New laws. Now that we have RCEP, the regional cooperation, which Indonesia is part of the regional Asia cooperation, which we can see new laws, new what we call the trading policies, bilateral, multilateral. All this is going to disrupt how Indonesian companies does business. The question is, are you ready for it? Are you prepared to manage that? So that's one of the challenges in my book I talk about. So a lot of examples how leaders need to manage. So then come back to my experience, and I was looking at September 11, and I was in the US in September 11 in Boston. If you remember, in September 11, 2001, during the hijacking of the Twin Tower and aviation industry, tourism industry was badly affected, but no one fly, and you find disrupt a lot of business. It is more focused on the I would say aviation, travel, tourism. But of course, after 8 months, 10 months, things start picking up. So that was the first crisis. Actually, if I go back, my first crisis was actually that I was involved in helping company was in 1998. That was what we call, I don't know how many of you remember, the Asian financial crisis in Bangkok, then in Malaysia, Indonesia, when there's a change of leadership from Pak Suharto, to Pak Habibie, I think there was just change. And that was the crisis leadership which we observed during the Asian financial crisis, and how companies are struggling to manage because of the event that's happened that threatened the organization viability, sustainability. And then of course we have the September 11, then we have what we call the .com crisis, 2001, 2002. And then we have the SARS in 2003, which Indonesia was not really affected, but mostly in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, primarily. Then of course Indonesia, you have your own set of crises, change of government, and you have, of course, you have political crisis, which also impact the organization ability to sustain. So crisis can happen in many forms. But one of the things about crisis is what we call the black swan event. So in my book, I explain the black swan event is an example of event that you never anticipate. If you look at black swan, we all know that in the world, we all know when we talk about swan, dalam bahasa Indonesia apa nih swan? Bagus, Pak Saka. Swan dalam bahasa Indonesia apa? Pak Saka?
Angsa, Pak, angsa.
Angsa.
Ya.
Angsa.
Warna angsanya selalu apa? Warna putih kan?
Biasa putih, sekarang hitam.
Ya, no, bukan sekarang hitam. Memang ada hitam, memang very rare, jarang-jarang sekali yang boleh ketemu di negara mana? Siapa boleh? Anyone can tell me where can you find black swan?
In Australia.
Yeah, which part of Australia?
Perth.
Perth is later, but the original is in Melbourne.
I forget. Melbourne, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's very rare you see black swan because it's a rare occasion. So we talk about crisis. There are two events that come to mind. First one is the Brexit. No one would ever thought in July 20, what we call the 2016, that we can, what we call anticipate that the British, the UK citizens or the UK British citizen decided to vote in a referendum to get out of the EU. No one would ever anticipate that. So, by the way, thanks Cardinal. Yeah, you're right. Nassim Nicholas Taleb wrote the book. Excellent. Thanks Cardinal. I just got the message you can see, and that is very good. One of the biggest problem is that how do we manage such event in the future? So many people get caught during the Brexit. And today is the 29th. We got 2 more days after all the negotiation, after all the problem, and 2 more days, and the British government and the EU has said to have a comprehensive agreement to ensure the continuing trade flows, people, and so forth. Agreement between the British government and the EU when British officially leaves the EU. So you can see that is what called a black swan. The other one is the election of President Donald Trump. Again, nobody expect, because everybody expect Hillary Clinton to win. Even myself, when I met Hillary Clinton in Singapore the year before, we were talking, she was invited as a guest, and interestingly, before she ran as as the Democratic nominee for the presidential election in 2016, we were looking at how can we, we listened to her, and she was very, very confident, and many people was very confident that yes, we can expect to have a first woman president of the United States. And until the day of the eve of the election, everybody was so confident. But at 2 a.m. in New York, on the 5th of November, after the election announcement, as the vote comes in, electoral votes comes in, and Trump's garner more and more electoral votes, and Hillary had to concede. The first time that nobody expect Trump, a reality TV star, a billionaire, who's not a politician, to be elected as a president. And rest is history, you know what happened. So it's a black swan event. So the COVID-19 is a black swan event where we can anticipate problem. And you look at COVID-19, and I will talk a little bit about that. It's a real challenge, and many people are not ready for it. Okay. Now, so let me now go into what we call the COVID-19. So when it first, as I said, and I've been following this, I've done research as early as, I would say, January 15, 16, when the 31st December of 2019, 31st December, when the Chinese government informed WHO that of the first new coronavirus virus, call it 2019 𝐶𝐶, which is the name and the scientific name of COVID-19. What happened is at that time, actually they already, now we have coming more and more information coming out that the virus has been around even much earlier. As early as early November, it's been, people reporting sick in the Wuhan and part of China, flu-like symptoms. Doctor doesn't know until they start to diagnose, start to do research. So, and when things get more clearer, and there were reports, research, and the Chinese government was late in reporting to WHO on the 31st, on the eve of New Year this year. So 31st December, it was reported, and then of course, the rest is history. Then 26th January, the Wuhan lockdown. Then, we find more and more countries, because travel becomes so prevalent, and people from China travel so all over the world, bringing with them the virus. And then you find that lockdown happen, as the rest is history, as what we are facing now. So the impact of COVID-19 is unprecedented. It shut down all industry. Nearly all industry are impacted, except very few, like e-commerce, food, maybe to a certain extent. E-commerce, of course, flourish. Healthcare flourish. And of course, retail was decimated, most of the retail. And you look at the brick and mortar business is gone. You look at many of the small, medium enterprise are impacted. So why? Because in crisis, most leaders do not prepare for them, do not get ready. And again, I won't go into all the COVID-19, and it has impacted lives, job, industry, what government. I wrote a lot of this in the book. It's a 360-page book. Chapter 2, Chapter 3 is on COVID-19. What are the disruption and how do you manage COVID-19? Chapter 4, chapter 5, and how do you prepare leaders to manage the crisis. So a lot of these examples. So I wouldn't go, if you want to know more, there are a lot of different webinars we have focused in March. In February, March, I focus a lot about COVID-19, and a lot of these are published on my YouTube. You can go to my link there, disruptiveleadership.institute. You can go to the YouTube, you can, channel, or can Google it, Disruptive Leadership Institute, YouTube. You can just look at all the previous webinar where I give you a lot of statistics, a lot of research, a lot of examples. Then it comes to the disruptive digital disruption. So one of the challenge I found that leaders are not able, this is the biggest problem, when you have facing right in front of you the disruption and people start panicking. What do we do? What do we do? I got calls. I remember first 6 weeks after the pandemic, the lockdown announced, by the various government, my clients in US calling my colleague in US, in Malaysia, Indonesia, but in China, people are struggling. What do we do? How do we manage this problem? We never see it before. And because people do not understand and did not prepare. So the disruptive leadership is so pronounced, is so impactful, it disrupts businesses. And the biggest problem that I found in my interaction, interviewing CEOs, CHROs, interviewing business leaders worldwide, in US, everywhere, is they do not have the right mindset, the disruptive mental agility to manage this disruption. So as I researched and about, it started in January, February until July 20th. I consolidate, and it's ongoing. So the book was going to be published actually 1st of July, and I stopped because there was some news coming up, the impact of the virus in Spain, Italy, Europe. So the publisher asked me to include the latest research about the, even I already anticipate in the book, I talk about the mutation, the variant. It's what we're experiencing today in the UK. It's in my book. I talk about that because my research interviewed doctors, scientists, which my team in the US and also in Singapore, we interview doctors, research scientists, which look at the pandemic, and they expect, because based on what they look at the flu, the flu influenza virus, look at the H5N1, H1N1. So there are different types of flu, based on the past experience, how the virus can mutate and what are some of the implications. And this way, on the 31st July, we decide to publish. And by then, on the I think around 29th or 30th July, the number of the people infected has, I think it was 6 months ago, it was only 10 million. Today, if you look at the numbers, I don't have this morning exact numbers, but you look at, it takes you about 6 months to reach 10 million. But within the last 6 months, it's reached about, the numbers about, I can't remember, 100 million. I think the number is phenomenal. And US is about 19 million as of last week or this week. So the numbers staggering, the way the virus, and if this UK virus is going to really spread, it is not as deadly. Research have shown initially by CDC in the US, in the UK, NHS, and in Singapore, scientists have found that the virus may not be as lethal, means you don't kill many people, but the bad news, the good news, it doesn't kill as many people or will be bad in terms of death, fatality, but the bad news is that is more prevalent, is more transmittable, it can be, it transmits faster, quicker in a rate that is phenomenal in the UK. That's very worrying. And there is a report, AstraZeneca, if you go and Google it last night, AstraZeneca said that their vaccine may not be effective to the new variant. And this is not what I'm saying. This is not fake news. I'm not saying conspiracy theory. And I receive every day a lot of email, WhatsApp about conspiracy, but these are facts. Google it, AstraZeneca, which is one of the vaccine producers that has been approved in the UK, and is going to be approved in the US, or is going to be approved in the US after going to be approved. We have first Pfizer, then Moderna, and Astra is the third one. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are not out of the problem, and there's still a lot of things unknown. The volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity, together we call the VUCA, is going to be the disruptive to business going to continue. And believe me, it's not going to change. So if you look at the disruption, the crisis I'm talking about, I look at the Asian financial crisis in 1997, 98. Those of you still around, most of you are very young, but those of you who probably, similar age as me, you probably remember those days when you're running businesses or working for a company. If you remember September 11, you remember the SARS crisis, or you remember the global financial crisis, which 2008, 2009, and now we look at the crisis of the COVID-19, or the digital transformation, which is more important to me, the disruption by digital transformation. In our research, we find that there is a set of skills. The good news is that you can develop. So let me hear from you. Just take 1 minute, just type one skill, just one skill or competency that you think is important to manage, for leaders to manage the disruption in the future or current challenges. What is one skill that is important? So let me look at your response. Let me look, can you type into your chat box now? Okay, Alvina says that learning agility. Yeah, okay, I agree. That is one, learning agility. What else? Come on. Yus Nagraha says that it's collaborative skills. Yeah, okay, good. Collaboration is indeed one of the skills. How do you work with people? How do you manage stakeholders? How do you leverage your network of people? Okay, Muammar Gaddafi says it's problem-solving skills. Yeah, problem-solving, decision-making. It's indeed important, but so far no one hit the the closest is okay, ability. Nusa says that please don't send me direct to me, send to everyone. Some of you sending me to me direct. Send to everyone. Okay, Nusa says ability to adapt. Fortunella said tech savvy. Andrew said thinking outside the norm. That's good. There's creative thinking. Alexander Lukman said agile mindset. Very good. Novelita Lily says agility, data analytic. Very good. Anyway, come on. There are 54 of you. I'm sure there are more than this. Come on. No one hit the. Andrew is quite close. Andy says computer programming. Well, Andy, not really. That's a technical skills, So may not be the one you can outsource to expert. But this is about your own leaders. What do you need to do? Come on. Anyone who got it right will get a prize from me. Come on. Very, very interesting prize. But you must be accurate. Data fluency, Toric. This is one of them in the digital transformation, but not the number one, the more important. You're not all wrong. You're all right, but that's not in the order of importance. I want to say adaptability, quite close. Yes, those of you say about adaptability. But if you look at the competency, one of the biggest competency is, if you look at what we have found in our first book in 2019, in the Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders, I published the first book and research worldwide. We look at some of the competency in the industry 4.0, the disruption, and some of this competency is what we call the cognitive readiness. Cognitive readiness, or Paragon 7. Paragon 7 is a term used by Executive Development Associate in US, where I sit on the Global Leadership Advisory leadership team. We did a research and we published in the first time we published it was 2016. And then we do a revision every 2 years. So in 2019, in my book, I explain in very detail what are the 7 top competency that you need to demonstrate to drive success as leader in the fourth industrial revolution. And I will go on, I won't go into the detail, but in the book, you can get the book and read. One is about metacognition. It's about how you disrupt your mindset, shift your mindset. Then you need to be attentional control, you need to be focused, be present. Very important when you have issues, challenge, be focused, not be distracted. Then you have the sense making. Sense making is about connecting the dots. You must be able to look at patterns. You must be able to learn how to connect different information, data that come along. Then intuition, you need to use your gut feeling. Not just data, use gut feeling, past experience, combined with data analytics, put things together, and then make informed decision. And then you have problem solving. As one of you, I think earlier, one of you talked about problem solving. And it's important, but is a part of the overall scheme. Then, of course, adaptability. Many of you talk adaptability, yes, correct. And of course, communication. How do you relay the message? How do you impact and influence your team? That's very important because you may have the knowledge, you may have the know-how, but if you're not able to communicate to your team to make sure that people understand, people need to understand, fully understand what does it mean. How do we make sure that people are able to implement what we have developed as a strategy? So together, this is called Paragon 7, cognitive competency, and we need to be ready. You need to develop ourselves. And I will tell you later, how do you do that? How can you take advantage of things that, programs that has been done? Now, so in my latest book in 2020, it's July 2020, which is called the Leadership in Disruptive Time, through my research interview with DBS Bank, the world best digital bank, #1 in the world. It's a Singapore-based bank, but global digital presence in India, even Indonesia. Then you have Starbucks. Look at how Howard Schultz transformed using digital transformation, innovative driven culture. The marketing flywheel in Starbucks to be able to transform the digital transformation in Starbucks. And if you look at Uber, again, Uber is a very good example. How they use technology, use algorithm, make it easy for people to flag taxi on the curb. And again, there's a case on chapter 1 and 2. We have Uber and Netflix example, how they do disruption, innovation. They use it very well, leverage on disruptive innovation as opposed to systematic innovation or organic innovation. And of course, the best example that I can find is Microsoft. In my research to Microsoft over the years, and I'm a very great follower of Satya Nadella, the third CEO of Microsoft after Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. And he's a great leader who's able to transform Microsoft to be one of the best run organizations and using certain skills, what we call the emotional and social intelligence, specifically using what we call the empathy. If you look at all these are all case studies in my book, chapter 4. I talk about chapter 1 and 2, I talk about Uber, Netflix. Chapter 4 and 5, I look at DBS Bank. Chapter 6, I look at Microsoft. Chapter 7, I look at Starbucks. And there are a few other cases in universities and so forth. But what I found that there are certain, if I may use the word, certain patterns, certain best practices approaches, best practices framework that can be developed based on my research. My team in the US, we have large team all over the world my consultant, adjunct consultant, who work with me as part of our network of HR consultancy, talk to their clients. So there was a survey done as I said, this research done since last year, my first book, my second book on the transforming the caption of leaders. But what we have found in the disruption, in the digital disruption, digital transformation, there are very specific, distinctive competency. In the disruptive environment, in the digital driven, what we will have seen, the tremendous difference is the way the leaders are able to transform the what we call the their team themselves, and how this can be. We can learn from this organization. Okay, so let me start with the first is very important. Now, what makes this organization? DBS Bank, Starbucks, Microsoft, 3M. We look at, I said, Netflix, Uber. There are certain characteristics. Procter and Gamble. I've studied Procter and Gamble. I've looked at organizations like, for example, some of you probably heard of Huawei, Cisco, and all these organizations. There are certain characteristics, okay, or what you call elements of the digital-driven culture. So, number one, what makes them different and what makes them successful as a digital organization? And I use the term, and it's not proprietary to me, but for many, many years, since 1990, I've been using this term called PPT, PowerPoint. I love PowerPoint, so I use the word PPT, people, process, technology. So I use the word PPT, people, process, technology. Some people use the word PTP, the same thing, people, technology. It doesn't really matter, but I believe you start with people. And you people here refers to internal and external customer. So you must have this customer centricity mindset. So what do I mean by that? In my book, I talk about the result-based innovation, result-based leadership, where you start with your people within the organization. When we talk about, see, a lot of people talk, oh, customer centricity. Okay, focus on the customer. We go into the retail at DBS, yes, customer is important. Piyush Gupta, the CEO, go and talk to customer. The first day, even before he joined, he went to the bank, retail, go to the branches, before you become the CEO, he will learn, talk to people. That's good. But if you are already running an organization, you are in there, talk to your people. Understand what are the challenges your people are facing. And you need to ensure your internal customers are satisfied. For example, we talk about, let's give an example, easy to understand bank. All of us goes to bank, yeah? We go to bank, we do transaction. The traditional way of doing banking, you go to the counter, and then you do your, to the branch, and you go and do your business, and, meeting the teller or the person that's serving you. Now, the teller, the person serving the external customer, the bank customer, cannot do the job if the system, the IT, the infrastructure, the back end support is not giving them the right infrastructure support to be able to do the job. So number one, it's important for us to remember the internal customer. Who is your internal customer? You must always ask this question. Who is your internal customer? Everyone has an internal customer, stakeholders. Then you have the last person who serves the external customer or the external customer facing individual. That is where you need to make sure that person have all the resources, all the support to be able to deliver the value that you position the organization to deliver. So the customer centricity is very important. Yeah. Then the innovation. You need to look at both the what we call the disruptive innovation. Not all of us can do. Again, in my book, I explain chapter 1. What is disruptive innovation? Not everyone can do disruptive innovation to use technology, but you need to come out with what we call the organic or systemic innovation, where we can find new ways of doing things better, faster, more efficient way of doing things in a quicker way. So it's about improving the current systems and processes, improving new products and services that you like to offer to the market. So innovation is very important. And third is data-driven decision-making using big data, using technology. And this is where today with AI, with big data, and you can find a lot of, it becomes so prevalent, so easy because many of these companies, like Amazon, the web services, Google, there are a lot of these cloud computing firms has made life easy. Dell, Seagate, and many other companies, Huawei, which has the technology they bring to organization and make it easy for us. to be able to do business, to make decision making in a very disruptive workplace. Then fourth is what some of you mentioned earlier about collaboration. So again, in a digital-driven transformation, if you want to transform your Indonesian companies, doesn't matter. This is applicable not only to big companies, small SME. One can be one person, can be 2, 5, 10, 100,000, 100,000. Doesn't matter. The principle remain the same. The question you need to do is to contextualize it, whether you are in insurance, whether you are in banking, whether you're in food, retail, whether you are in government, and government is public sector 4.0. When I work with in the Malaysian government, in Singapore government, we work in government agency to how to transform. Whether you are in, could be urban planning, architectural firm, healthcare, another, I work with hospital, and I work with KFC in Malaysia, where we help them to be preparing the leaders for the digital transformation of the hospital. Plantation, I work with Kulim, which is one of the biggest palm oil. They have operation also in Indonesia. So question is this, are we able to adapt? But if you put the first four important, customer centricity, innovation, data-driven, collaboration, then you create what we call a trust-based partnership. So people can be work together. They trust the leadership, and then you can have more employee engagement. And then when a problem comes up, you can work things better. And then you use a disruptive mentality to solve problems, how you disrupt your mindset, your agility mindset, and of course, flexibility, adaptability, agility to move forward. So together, we have this seven set of competency. Okay, that would, seven set of element of culture that would drive success in the digital transformation. But to be doing this right, there are certain set of competency, skills, behavior that is important. So together we have 6 competency. We call the disruptive leadership competency. Again, my book in chapter 5 and chapter 6, I explain in very detail. In chapter 6, every single competency is explained based on research of many other organizations worldwide, by many other global thought leadership research. We benchmark our own research against those. We came out into 6, easy. We summarize, make it easy for our clients worldwide. Number 1 is disruptive mentality. You must be very innovative driven. You want to be digital to transform your organization digitally. You want to put in place to be successful like Microsoft, DBS, Starbucks, 3M, Procter & Gamble, GE, Boeing, all these companies in our research. They have one thing very common. They have what we call the disruptive mentality mindset, innovation driven. Second, they have leaders who are very visionary, able to envision the future. They have what we call entrepreneurial skills. And of course, the rest I mentioned about cognitive readiness. I just mentioned earlier, the 7 cognitive readiness, Paragon 7. That's very important based on my research last year. Then you have resilience, adaptability. Again, we talked about that earlier. And the number 5, very important, empathy and social skills. Satya Nadella used this a requirement when they want to hire future leaders in Microsoft. One of the things they look for is your ability to empathy. They do assessment, EQ assessment. They do interview, behavioral event interview. They conduct the ability to assess future leaders must demonstrate it. Same thing, GE. Same thing if you look at Barclays Bank, DBS Bank. If you look at my recent work when I was looking at companies in Malaysia, some of the successful companies who's able to use empathy as part of their leadership framework. And lastly, results. As leaders, you need to drive results, but result is driven by impacting, influencing people. So you need to have the leadership skill, people skills, we talk about collaboration and the rest. So these 6 skills are called the disruptive leadership competency. And in my book, chapter 5 and 6, we explain in detail. Now, the next question, very more important for all of you. After listening to me for the last nearly an hour, the most important is this. What do I do? A lot of us, leaders, CEOs, CHRO, business leader, have a disease. And I use the word disease because my 30 years of experience as business leader consulting globally, I use the word disease because it's what we call the knowing doing gap. It's a disease, it's an illness that many of us are not able to cure or to address it effectively because it's lack of self-awareness. Knowing, we know, yeah, some of you now listen to my, the biggest things that I look at every webinar, I've done at least 50, over the last 9 months. One of the things I found is a knowing doing gap. Out of 100, I just give 100 participants, less than 25 or 20-25% would contact me, engage me or my partners in the different country to know more, to engage more, read, go to my YouTube, look at all the video articles, get the book, read. They know, but they do not know how to do it. So they get. So it's about knowing, doing. So these people, they take action. So I'm going to share with you, how can you develop? How can you learn after you're learning, you knowing what I just shared in 1 hour? What do you need to do? So number one, so what we have done is my team globally, we have the Disruptive Leadership Institute. It's a global institute. It is based out of Singapore, but we have consultants all over the world. Is formed with a partnership of a global organization called iGroup in US, in New York. And they have done work in research and over the last 15-20 years, been able to come out with a lot of research report books. You can find out about them from my website, disruptive leadership.institute. But globally, we have found that there are 8 programs that have been very successful. We have tested in US, we have tested in Asia. What are these? Number one is the number one best, number one most important is what I'm talking to you today, is in the form of a masterclass. It's called Leading in Disruptive Time. So combining all our research, we put it into a 3 to 5 days. It can be 2 days, it can be 1 day, depending on what the client wants, but it's very popular. Number 2 is about digital transformation, how to implement, again, about remember I told you 7 culture and the 6 competency in digital, disruptive digital. That is a workshop number 2. And then number 3 is what we talk about the first book about last year, is about how to prepare succession planning, how to transform digital leaders of the future. You call it transforming next generation of leaders. Number 4 is about leading in the VUCA world. What does it mean? How to handle uncertainty, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, like COVID-19, like crisis, any crisis. How do you handle that? Number 5 is about digital high performance. You want to be like Starbucks, for example, or Microsoft. What are some of the criteria? What do you need to put in place, the structure? Number 6 is about team, high performing team. Using in insurance, we have case study in insurance. We have case study using university education institutions. We have case study of pharmaceutical, case study in healthcare. How do you do that? And number 7 is, which applies to all industry, high performance culture. How do you bring results? By coaching, developing your people. How do you engage with your people? By giving feedback, not just once a year, once every 6 months, no. Every day, every other conversation. How do you transform? How do you use empathy, social skills, influence skills? Number 8, of course, transforming the workplace of future. We call it the world of work, or the future of work, FOW or WOW in the post-pandemic. What do you need to do? How do you engage people? How do you compensation your gig economy? How do you look at the transient workforce, the what they call the contingent workforce, people who want to work part-time, the Gen Z, Gen Y, and what do we need to do differently? So the details can go into the website there, Disruptive Leadership Institute. You can get, or you can contact Intipisan, your whoever invites you for this workshop. Contact them; they will give you the information. Or you can go to my website or email us. We will get you the information. Okay. Now, then what you have done is for CEO direct report C-1, C-2, or N-1, N-2. We have developed a program worldwide that has been very successful through our Center for Executive Coaching. We help them about disruption. how to manage disruption. We coach them that in Malaysia, Indonesia, we did a couple of them, but we have done in Singapore a lot, in China, in Malaysia, quite a lot in Malaysia, in US. I'm right now doing in Korea. We are doing a few projects in Japan and Europe, in London, for a very global bank. So they are all going through transformation, digital transformation, and they want to prepare the leaders. So we coach them, we guide them after they attended our masterclass. Yeah. And the good news is that we are launching just last week on the new program. So those who attended our masterclass, when they have an MBA or they have a master's degree, they can go into a program that's recognized by the French government and internationally accredited, called the MBA in Disruptive Leadership. So this is an MBA program, which post-MBA, you've done your MBA, you want to go specialization. There's another program that just launched also called MBA in Digital Transformation. Again, all this program is part of our offering to help leaders in company to offer their top leadership, high potential CEOs to prepare for the new normal, to help. There is a 10-week program. They can get them ready in the post-pandemic, how to roll out transformation. And again, it's a very internationally recognized, it's an accredited program. It's a new, first of its kind. No one, you can Google it, no one in the world has offered an MBA in disruptive leadership. There are two organizations. One is INSEAD, the other one is IMD, which and to a certain extent, MIT has a program on disruptive with a leadership component, but not MBA. It's a diploma or a specialization, postgrad. But ours is an MBA, so it's very specialized. Again, there's a link there. You can go to the link on the slide. You can get a copy of the slide after this event. Call Intipisan, contact people who invite you. They will give you a copy of the slide. Yeah. So that's one. Now the good thing is that this it only takes you 10 weeks, 3 modules. You see, the first one is disruptive leadership, leading disruptive innovation, and last one, how to implement. Very practical. You will work on projects of your company, and you only 10 weeks if you can complete it, and you can do it. But we have done it. Many companies in Malaysia. We have done it in Europe, in France. We are doing now in Africa. Quite a lot of companies are doing, and it's recognized internationally. It's benchmarked to level 6 in UK, and in Malaysia, level 6 as well. It's recognized by the Malaysian government. And again, you want to know more details, go to my website there, and also or contact Intipisan. They will be able to give you more information. Now, as a gift for all of you who attended this workshop, I'd like to give you a gift. You can download all my videos, articles, goes to the website there, Disruptive Leadership videos, or you can go to YouTube, Google Disruptive Leadership Institute, subscribe. You can download all my videos, webinar, thought leadership, masterclass. You can articles again, a lot of articles. You can Google, you can get resource. It's public. And lastly, the good news is that for all of you, I decided at the end of the year. So what we are doing is Intipisan is our representative, our partners. I've been working with Pak Kuz, Pak Slamet for many years. Over the years, I spoke at the HR Expo many years, several times. We did workshop together on Leadership 4.0. We have decided to provide for corporation companies who order more than 20, 30, 50 books, there's a certain discount you can get compared to what you get from Amazon. There's no discount, and it's more expensive. But again, if you're interested in the books, contact Intipisan or email us, and the email is there. We can discuss. Okay, so both books are available in stock, all ex-stock in Singapore, so we can ship by courier immediately, no problem. Let me conclude before we open to Q&A. So we have more time, half an hour. Now, let me just conclude to say this. Arthur Schopenhauer, which is a thinker, liberal thinker, I would say a philosopher in the early 18th century. He says that, the task is not so much to see what no one yet has seen, but to think what nobody yet has thought about, which everybody sees. Now, I know it sounds a bit complicated. Basically, this is called the disruptive digital mindset, what I talk about, agility, the mindset agility. It's not what everybody say, oh, we must do things differently. Or if you look at a competitor, if you are looking at your nearest competitor, oh, we must do, come out something bad. No, you must look at things differently by thinking. So critical thinking, your agility, disruptive agility, think, rethink, we call it cognitive readiness. What everybody sees, everybody sees the same thing you see, but you're able to think what nobody yet is about to think about what they've seen. In other words, you are able to transform and disrupt your mindset. So that is what is important. That is what we want to create the leaders of the future in the digital environment. And what we're going to face is more and more of this problem where we need leaders who can think, rethink, and we call it a learning agility. Learning agility is ability to think and learn, unlearn, relearn each time. Every time we come something new, learn something new, unlearn what doesn't work anymore, throw away what you have learned, and then relearn. Because our mind has capacity. We can learn, unlearn, relearn continuously. Okay? So with that note, let me now hand over back to Pak Saka, our moderator, and so for Q&A. So I will stop the sharing of the slide. Before I stop sharing, you get a slide. So you have the slide, you have all my contact details. The videos is there, disruptive leadership. You can take a screenshot. For those of you who want to take a, you can take a photo or screenshot of your PC or your phone or whatever device you're using. There's all the links are there. You will get a slide if you want, right to Inter-Pisan, contact Inter-Pisan. But the video, subscribe to be a free membership on YouTube. Subscribe, download, view many videos. Also on CE, this is your DLI, Disruptive Leadership Institute. On CE, the parent company, we have 100, nearly about, I would say nearly 1,000, 900 over videos, and the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so forth. Okay, so let me now go back to hand over to Pak Saka. I will stop sharing the slides so we can see each other. Again, when you're asking question, you may want to, I know you put it into the chat group. Pak Saka will read. But if you want to engage me, you can put it on the video. But the rest, please off your sound and your video unless you are engaging and speaking to me. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big applause to Professor Sattar Bawani. First of all, I want to summarize, but supposedly I can use a very short time, maybe in 1 minute.
Half an hour, Pak Saka, we have half an hour, no problem.
No problem. It's okay. First of all, Professor Sattar Bawani has mentioned about the importance of disruptive events. And secondly, Professor Sattar Bawani has also mentioned that leadership pipelines, or we have to prepare leadership pipelines, and it is very important to combat or at least to manage the crisis. And thirdly, Professor Bawani has mentioned also that a digital-driven business is very important. We have to manage, we have to understand, and we have to really knowing it very, very well. And last but not least, that particular environment, I mean, digital-driven business environment, will be actually push us, quote unquote, to have the right skills and competencies in the future. And he has also mentioned a lot of things that we have to have what we call, or he calls, or Professor Bawani calls, learning agility. And we have to really having a mental setup, a mindset of doing or having leadership, what we call, or what he has called, disruptive leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can quote Peter F. Drucker, Peter F. Drucker said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. I mean, and it seems to me, this is only my personal. It seems to me that supposedly that Professor Sattar Bawani has mentioned that we have to really create our future, by the way, with his presentation or lecture. It is a very good lecture. It is a first-class lecture. It is a lecture that opened our minds, and it is really a lecture, not only a first-class one, but also a very, very advanced lecture. Nah, okay, ladies and gentlemen, bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu, I have one question, if not mistaken, here at the chat room, and it's quite easy for Professor Satar Bawani also to see or to follow or to read the questions. And from Yus Nugraha. Dear Professor Satar, nice to meeting you here virtually. We used to talk and discuss about leadership in many conditions. Quote, between brackets, disruptive transformative industry 4.0, etc. But quite rarely to discuss or to include the role and position of the entrepreneurs. As we know that nations' wealth is supported by them. What is your idea? Thank you so much. Yus Nugraha, Psychology Unpad. Please, Professor.
Thanks, Pasaka. Thanks, Yus. I think I believe it was in October, I deliver a global webinar hosted by a university in Philippines. You can find it on the YouTube, 𝐶𝐄𝐒, the School of Agility and Grit is of entrepreneurs. And they ask similar question, how do we support entrepreneurship and how do we, prepare the role entrepreneur moving forward? So you can go and look at the video for, it's a 1.5 hour to 2 hour video. But in essence, entrepreneur is still leader. It's the same thing. When you talk about entrepreneurship, it's about how do you then look at your own objective as a business entrepreneur is about sustainability of your organization. You still use the 7 competency, cognitive readiness. You still look at the culture, the digital-driven culture, the element, the 7 element, and of course, then the disruptive competence. It's the same thing. So you need to look at those, but you need to contextualize it. Contextualize it to your industry, to your business, and make it more meaningful to your team, So there's a contextualization of those principles and the detail, the framework. How do you, prepare and entrepreneurs? What role do they play? And this is all about the what we call the macro. You are right about the government, the macro forces. And it is nothing different in running a business organization. In my book, the later on 2020, the book Leadership Disruptive Time, I explain that across industry, across type of, even non-profit. My book is used by non-profit in some organization in Africa, in US. They're using it to help their non-profit leader, church, more religious organizations are using it to prepare their future leaders to run their religious organization. It's the same thing. So as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest challenge is because we are so trapped into our own success. Entrepreneur, and myself being an entrepreneur for many years, I said I had 3 different startups over the years. I was from back in 1995-96 when I was doing my MBA in Golden Gate University, my executive MBA. I was in Silicon Valley in San Jose and working for a company called 𝐿𝐾𝐈𝐒 Technologies, where it's a startup in the Silicon Valley. And I meet a lot of entrepreneurs and some of my colleagues, my friends. And this is the biggest problem. They are stuck with their own success and they lack of what we call self-awareness, humility, to be able to understand. To be able to be successful as an entrepreneur, yes, it depends on your own ability, your entrepreneurial skills, but also depend on others. How you bring about the collaborative partners, other venture capital, your team together, founding team, and so forth. So it is in a way what I believe is important, that entrepreneur has to really disrupt. If I may sum up, you have the disruptive mental agility, just like a business leader. The only difference, one of the biggest problems is the humility, self-awareness, humility, that they do not have all the answer. And a good example to learn from entrepreneur is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was so obsessed back in in the late 80s when and John Scully. Those of you know, read about Steve Jobs, and John Scully, who was running Pepsi, who it was Steve Jobs who got into Apple then, and Steve Jobs was so focused on the Lisa programming, and he's spending a lot of money, so much money that then John Scully and the board decided to throw him out, kick him out, and then he was sacked from his own firm. And after that, then he founded Next Computing and Pixar Studio, and the rest become history. And then in 1995, 96, he was invited back, and he revamped the company. Being an entrepreneur, then you need to have the humility to acknowledge that you do not. And Steve Jobs acknowledged that in a subsequent interview later before he passed on, and he gave a very profound speech. Go to YouTube, look for Stanford University commencement. Steve Jobs talk about life lesson, and one of the challenges about humility, about acknowledgement that you don't have all the answers. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. We have also a second question. I think from Elvina Perkasa. Hi, Prof. Thanks for sharing your research and your viewpoint. Do you have any practical action we can do internally as soon as possible to help our current leaders to change their mindset? As you know, we must do everything as soon as possible in this VUCA and disruption era, especially if our current leaders already work for a long time in the company and already get used to the visual way, quote unquote, of thinking and doing their work. Thanks in advance. Please, Professor Sata.
Yeah, Elvina, thanks for the question. I think it's an excellent question. One of the challenges that, as I said, out of 100% of attendee in all my webinars, 20 to 25% are those who are asking this question. It's about knowing, doing it. How do I do it? Now that I know, yeah, knowing is one thing, but what do you do? So it's about action implementing. And this is where I think it's important. The book, one of the first steps, my book is to read all the endorsement, by thought leaders worldwide, CEOs, CHRO. One of the feedback is that it's practical tools, practical framework that you can implement immediately. So there's a lot of example things that one of the, Henricus, can you just off your video unless you're asking question? Elvina, first, if somebody is, it's very distracting when you come in. Can you off all your video unless you're asking questions and your sound? And off all, can we mute everyone? Okay, so I think what is important is we need to understand, once you understand themselves, we would then have the ability to know what do we need to do, and to need to implement. You need to be able to have some form of guidance, framework, best practice, like what DBS Bank, what Microsoft, what the other organization has been able to do. Like for example, I think I mentioned about Uber, Netflix. All these organizations is included in my book. So my advice to you, Elvina, is to look at the best practice. Remember the Paragon 7, that's one. Second is the disruptive mental agility, 6 competency. Then you have the 7 culture of digital-driven culture element. All these are in the book. So the first step, and how do you do that? How do you help them? Is to have you can have masterclass, you can have session like this. We can help them to be aware. So you need to have awareness first. Very important, contact Intipisan. There are many programs that we work in developing, launching for Indonesia. Next year, 2021, we're going to have a series of programs. So Elvina, I'm not sure which organization, can you, on your, Elvina, can you maybe tell me which industry? Maybe I can give you some example, Elvina. Which industry are you from, Elvina? Can you speak up?
Hello, Prof. Nice to
Yeah.
see you here.
Yeah, I can hear you. Wait, yeah. Which industry are you from, Elvina?
Oh, we are from automotive industry.
Automotive. Okay. So automotive. Yeah, I can give you an example. I have worked with Toyota, for example, Toyota Tsusho over the years. So I can give you an example how they transform. And one of the thing about Toyota example is in Indonesia is Astra. I think partner with them. But I work in Tokyo and also looking at the learning organization. So they're very learning centric. They're innovative driven. So what they have done right is to create a culture that people wants to be able to contribute, create the right climate, that people wants to be able to, and then it's a trust-based partnership. So this is number one. You need to look at how the best practices of people in your industry. And also you can learn outside automotive. You can look at Bosch. You can look at example that I mentioned about earlier about this what you call Netflix or even Procter & Gamble pharmaceutical. How they do it is create the right digital-driven culture. Yeah. So you can contact me. I will give you more information or best is contact in Intipisan, your contact in Intipisan, inshallah. They can, get you the information through me or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So I hope I answer your question. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Pasaka? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Avina. Pasaka? Pasaka?
Mic-nya di-unmute, Pak.
Yeah, just unmute because
Yeah.
I cannot unmute by myself.
Yeah, because everybody, it's a lot of
Yes.
disruption.
Yeah. Just a minute, okay. There is a question also from, if not mistaken, Novelita or Lily S. Asking, dear Professor Sattar, thank you for your sharing. It is insightful to hear. It is your presentation you stated about quote unquote disruptive leadership competencies. Culture of a country may play a role in how our leaders' mindset are being brought up. I'm interested from your experience in working with Indonesian leaders in how to drive the mindset of our leaders. Where would we start if you can share for your studies or
Yeah.
observation? Many thanks for your response. Professor Sattar.
Yeah, Novelita, thank you so much for your question. I think, first of all, the framework, the research that we did is across globally, across country, across region, across all culture. Yes, we have two types of culture, what we call the national culture, like Japan, American, Eastern, Western, even within Asia, even within Indonesia, so many islands, different sort of culture, way things are done in a different community. Then you have what we call corporate culture, how things are done within the organization is also different. So the question is whether is that different? No, I think what is important, not the national culture. Yes, generally Japanese, they are more or less vocal generally compared to a Korean, or you look at the Finnish in Finland, or as opposed to someone from Germany in Europe, or even in America, the Southern in Alabama compared to people from New York in California. There are different way of expressing. There are different national culture or regional or geo culture with specific to a region. What is important when you talk about corporate culture within the organization is about how you create the environment, the behavior of the leader, the CEO set the tone. So if you look at companies that have been very successful, and I work with, like, for example, in Generali, Eddie to Hirman, like good example, who drive, who believe, who, over the years, and I work with Generali. The other thing, of course, is AstraZeneca, Indonesia, again, has been very powerful because the leader who's able to create that environment, their climate, where people feel they want to contribute. They believe in the leader, they believe in the organization. So it starts with the CEO, start with the Indonesia, you call it president, president, director general, or whatever, president. You know, the main, what we call the head of organization. And of course, the board is a very important role to play. Now, if you get it right, you get the right leader to be able to create a climate of trust. People want to do it not because they have to do it, they do it because they want to do it. Now, how do you do that? How do you create a climate where people do it not because the boss tells you to do it? You get it done because I asked you to do it, but you do it because you're willing to work blood, sweat, and tears for the organization. That is what we want leaders who are able to inspire you. So when we talk about disruptive leadership competency, it cut across all culture. Example like Satya Nadella, very soft-spoken, very intellectually very smart, but socially, emotionally intelligent, who's able to demonstrate empathy, connectivity, get people to believe in what he believes. Now, that is a hallmark. To be successful, doesn't matter Indonesia, whether in Singapore, US, Russia. I work in Russia with Unilever. You know, same thing, Russia, very tough. They will tell you straight off your face. And I was in Russia, in Moscow, many years ago, and you know, it's all directly on your face. They told the CEO, they can tell us in a workshop. And I work in Africa. South Africa is different from Nigeria or in Ghana. Same thing when I was in Middle East. I was in Fujairah, in UAE, in Bahrain. So, you know, all the different, even China, you know, different part of China, when you're talking about Dalian or in Harbin, the north, or talking about Beijing or Guangzhou, they're all different culture, subculture. But what is common in all this country, common in all this organization, is that the leaders, the senior leaders, the CEO, the head of organization inspire people through their emotional and social intelligence. And that's more important, Novelita. That's more important. Yeah? So this is what I think, not about Indonesia, but any country. But I've worked in Indonesia. I've seen some leaders, yes, because of their ability to inspire. I've seen some leaders in Indonesia. They're very autocratic style of leadership. They push, and push. They may not get the results. Yeah. So Novelita, you may want to, if you want to, you know, ask question. You know, you can I already unmute you. You can, you know, you can ask question. Does it answer your question? You have any follow-up question? Does it make sense? Or even to the others, you may want to build on what Novelita asked on my response. If you want to ask further question.
Thank you, Professor Sato, for the response. It's really helpful. I will use some of the statement in how I will work with my CEO. Thank you for that.
And get the book. Get the book. A lot of tips there. And talk to Intipisan. You want me? You can organize something similar like this for your company. Which industry are you from, Novelita?
I'm from insurance industry.
Okay. Which company is that?
MSIG, Asuransi Sinarmas, MSIG.
So insurance, I have a lot of experience working in insurance. You know, I can talk to you about AIA in Singapore. I work with AIA in Singapore. I work with Generali Indonesia. We can share some experience. So talk to your contact in Intipisan. Inshallah, we can organize a similar session if you want.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. There is also Professor Sata. There is also a question from Nusa Rangkuti. What is Singapore's policy regarding data sovereignty? Unlike Germany, China, etc., it is not compulsory to store data locally in Indonesia. Will this be a no-win scenario for Indonesia?
Yeah, you know, this is an issue that every country has to decide. You know, data integrity, data sovereignty policy is a very sensitive one. You know, part of the digital transformation, part of the industry 4.0. Worldwide organizations have to learn to cope with these challenges. And of course, you know, data protection. In Singapore, we have laws, like I'm sure Indonesia, they have laws of data protection to protect the consumer. Companies have to comply to certain privacy laws and to ensure that things, you know, are being put in place to safeguard the interests of the consumer. interests of the customers and so forth. You know, there are a lot of data center, like for example, Google has opened up, Facebook, Google, Microsoft has opened up data center all over the world. Singapore is one of the major data center all over. All the big tech companies have data center in Singapore. So companies tend to decide where is the best place to put your data. This is my personal view. My personal view is because of cloud computing today, is it necessary for you to host your data where you not necessarily, but you need to decide on each company policy. Each company has their own policy consideration. Each company has the law to comply with. Where you are incorporated, when you're incorporated in a certain country, there are laws, prevailing laws that you need to comply, because it's part of governance and you cannot do away with that. So you need to decide how you incorporate some of the big US tech companies, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Google. They have companies registered in Ireland. They're more liberal. They have company so that they can have laws that are applicable to Ireland. So you need to think carefully the operations, where is best to be able to protect your data. Yeah? Which laws best serve your company, your organization. And I think one of the last thing I think is important to remember that we have stakeholder relationship, part of corporate governance. We cannot do away, and we have to always be mindful about the government, and they are a very important place. You're operating, you need to comply to government, you need to look at the government. And of course, part of the responsibility of CEOs to look at how you can, influence and policy through your chamber, Chamber of Commerce in Indonesia's Kadin, whatever they call it. There are many ways you can influence laws and all that. But my answer to the question is, Indonesia is the question is not compulsory to store data in Indonesia. It is a no-win. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because, as I said, it depends on the company, the government policy, and also what is best for your company and your customers, data security. So if you want to force companies to place data within your country and you do not have the infrastructure, with the hacking, look at the data security, even in US company have been hacked every day, then it's not it affects your brand reputation, affects your company reputation. So you need to decide what is best for your company, what is best for your organization. Yeah, so Nusa, I hope I've answered your question. If you have any follow-up question you have, I've already unmuted you, you can ask questions.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, Professor Sata, that's a very good answer. Well, as you know, data harnessing, even here in Indonesia, a lot of our banks store their data overseas, and then in the end, they rely on the overseas consultant to design the kinds of services and products they should and should not launch. So sometimes they don't steal your data; they use them to analyze and work against you sometimes. So that is our biggest concern, and this has been a very big issue here in Indonesia, as the policy does not really protect our standing in this world of in this digital world. Yeah, a lot of things are working against us in this matter. Yeah, as a comparison, you have like say 370 megawatts of data center compared to what we have here, only about 60 megawatts. So you can imagine you have seven times more storage capacity. Yeah? And so that is it. And as you know, I mean, this is also an issue in the U.S. Congress in relationship to all the big players, Google, Facebook, etc. Yeah, and so that's why I've been asking about for a mid-power and developing country like Indonesia, how do you defend yourself against this, government or policy-wise, or like practical-wise? As you said, yeah, it depends on how wise we are in storing our data, where and what policy they have. Yeah, Of course, I mean, if you're just a tiny part of the whole ecosystem, then you can imagine, right? I mean, you're going to be dominated. There is a no-win situation like Indonesia. I mean, like not only in the it is a crazy disruption, especially with the current mainstream investment scheme, burning money, etc. It's very unnatural, right? I mean, like how can you, for example, how can you open up a restaurant which you can maintain a loss for 2-3 years, and during that time you eliminate all your competition, right? A subsidized operation, right? Like Grab, Gojek, Uber. So these are the ugliest disruption actually in the global economy, and it's really unhealthy because all these bubble keeps on growing, and in the end they will buy out the real sector, the production, and the real working sector in the global economy. They have nothing. So that is it. So
industry, which industry, which company?
We are quite diverse. We are in the education, technology, property, services, hospitality.
What's the name of your? What's the name of your?
Manika Mutiara, and but I represent the World Halal Industry and Trade Alliance.
It's a big, the halal industry in Indonesia. I mean, in Malaysia, it's a big issue. Beef station and all that. But let me just quickly wrap up before I hand over back to Pasaka. One of the things that you mentioned, I agree with everything you mentioned. So at the end of the day, it's about choosing the right partner, trust, it's about trustworthiness and also in data integrity, you're right, laws can do so much. It's about culture. It's about the people's behavior. You can put all the laws, you can put all the regulation, there's still people will violate. There's still be a lot of issue of data integrity, issue of breaches and so forth. In Singapore, there are many cases. I think in the government institutions, many cases. Even at one stage last year, the Prime Minister data in the healthcare government healthcare institute was breached. So you're right. So these are things we have to be mindful. You brought up a very important point that many people don't think about that, because it's about putting the right infrastructure, technology, and make sure you have the right people guarding and find the right partner to outsource the right partner. Okay, so thank you for that, Pak Nusa. Pasaka, over to you. Any other questions?
Okay, Professor Sattar, we have already reached at the end of your presentation or your lecture plus the Q&A session, because we have already spent around maybe more than 90 minutes, by the way. Before I close the discussion of the lecture and the Q&A, I think everything goes very smoothly, and your presentation or lecture is really very good, very excellent, and the discussion is also very, very fruitful. And for the food for thought, I believe that you already mentioned things that really very important. That is, results are obtained by exploring opportunities. That's what Peter F. Drucker said several years ago. Okay, Professor Sattar, I'm not really very sure whether Pak Kus will close the discussion. If Pak Kus will close the discussion or the presentation and the Q&A session, please, Pak Kus.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih, Pak Saka.
Ya, thank you.
Jadi biarpun hanya 1,5 jam, nampaknya terlalu banyak yang disampaikan. Jadi luar biasa saya kira kita dapat insight yang cukup dalam. Memang kalau untuk memerlukan lebih detail barangkali langsung saja kontak Prof. Sattar di Singapura. Sudah ada alamatnya ya. Bapak-bapak dan ibu sekalian, terima kasih atas join-nya. Mudah-mudahan ada beberapa hal yang bisa kita petik. Kalau saya melihat bagaimana Prof. Satar presentasinya itu perlu kita acungi jempol. 1 hour energi, ya. Wah, ini luar biasa. Ini patut kita contoh dalam presentasi 1 hour ya, energinya luar biasa. Ini perlu dicontoh banget ini untuk kita sebagai konsultan atau sebagai presenter. Baik, terima kasih. Saya serahkan saja kepada Mas Rahmat Supriyato untuk foto barangkali ya. Kita kenang-kenangan sama Prof. Satar nih. Prof, terima kasih Prof. Semoga ini amal jariah Anda untuk Indonesia. Oke.
Terima kasih Pak Kus. Alhamdulillah.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih,
Bapak Ibu sekalian,
Terima kasih.
kita foto dulu boleh Pak ya?
Siap.
Ya.
Foto dong.
Ya.
Oke, mohon diaktifkan dulu videonya. Mas Asep siap? Oke. Oke, Mas Asep tolong dibuka semua videonya. Oke. Kita hitung 1, 2, 3 ya.
Siap.
1,
Okay.
2.
But we're not able to see everyone. How do we put everyone?
Prof. Satar, halo.
Iya.
How do we put everyone? Can we do it one video? I mean, one stream?
No, everyone has tried to open the video.
Oh,
Okay, we start from 1 until 3.
okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay, once more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, the next one.
Thank you very much for everyone who has joined this session. And once more, thank you Pak Profesor Satar.
Ya.
Dan kami informasikan atau mungkin kami ingatkan kembali ke Bapak Ibu sekalian bahwa sore hari nanti ada acara Festival Seminar Manajemen Indonesia Bangkit yang akan menghadirkan Bapak Dr. Bapak Budi W. Sucipto PhD yang akan membahas tentang leadership skills. Waktunya pukul 15.30 sampai jam 5. Silakan yang akan bergabung. Acara ini sudah berlangsung dari mulai tanggal 14 Desember. Jadi untuk sore hari ini nanti ada sesi ke-9. Demikian. Sampai berjumpa kembali di acara kami yang lain. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Again.
Ya, terima kasih Mas Kus. Thank you Profesor Satar.
Mas Satar.
Terima kasih Pak Kus.
Pak Davi.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Profesor Satar.
Pak Siswono. Nusaran ya, terima kasih. Pak Alexander Lukman.
So I see some familiar names. Everybody. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much.
Pak Awan Setiawan, terima kasih.
Okay. So Muhammad Galavi, okay, thank you so much.
Pak Mas Amir, Pak Hendra Sasonto, Pak Kustanil.
Mas Selamat, Mbak Melan, terima kasih. Profesor Satar, again, thank you very much. Mas Kus, terima kasih.